Welcome to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we dive into life's big stories. Everything from breakups and breakdowns to buried secrets and triumphant happy endings. It's the stuff that makes us human. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey, author of How to Divorce Sober. I'm a mentor, award-winning blogger, yoga instructor, and in a past life, a fully qualified civil engineer. You can find me at hannahharvey.uk or on Instagram at hannahharveyuk. I absolutely love to hear from you, so please get in touch with your stories, thoughts, or questions. But for now, get cozy, settle in, and let's dive into your next chapter of Happily Ever After. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After. It's me, Hannah, and today I'm joined by one of my very all-time favourite people, Rachel Smithbone.
Hello.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for coming back. So you were on last year on the podcast in August 2023. It was episode 60. And I do believe this one is going to be something like episode 90.
Ooh.
So I'm looking forward to hearing what wild things you have to tell me, because the conversation last year was, we'd never met before. It all sort of fell into place where you were coming on, and it was one of the wildest conversations I've probably ever had.
Really? Oh, babes. I mean, we've had wilder since, right?
Very much so.
It was a good conversation, though. It was a really good conversation.
It was, and I have listened to it since quite a few times. You know, when you need a bit of a boost, I've been like, I need to re-listen to that.
I love that.
It was so good. So, I've even quoted you from it in my new book, How to Divorce Sober.
So exciting. And the book's nearly in the world, everyone. How cool is that?
Yeah, well, by the time this comes out, it will be in the world.
Buy it. Buy it. Go buy it now. Go now.
Buy it now. Okay, so in addition to your podcast helping me a lot, we have since moved into a relationship where you are coaching me.
We have. I thought you were going to say we've since moved into a relationship. I'm here for it, babe. I'm so here.
We've never met in real life. It would be like, I don't even know what to equate it to. Pen friends, like a no. I don't even know where I'm going.
Prison lovers? Is that what's happened?
That's what I was going to say, but we're both very free spirits, so that's definitely not the case. But yeah, so you've been helping me loads over the last few months because with the book coming out, and I guess moving into like the next stage of my life as a divorcee, standing on her own 2 feet. And yeah, the biggie was moving into my own house and I lost my shit. Do you remember? I was like, I'm having a breakdown, Rachel. I need your help now.
Oh my God, I'd forgotten that's how it got started.
Yeah, I was like, if I don't do it, like this is the time. I need Rachel Magic now because I'm really, really stuck. And I just couldn't seem to shift out of that feeling of I can't do this.
Yeah, that was like May time, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I'd moved in April.
Yeah, end of April sort of time.
Yeah, I had a full breakdown for most of April and I was like, how am I going to get out of this? Like, I'm in my beautiful house. I've spent loads of time and energy and money into making it lovely. We've moved in and I just felt completely untethered and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. So I thought it would actually be fun to go through some of our coaching calls because they've been so wild.
They have been so wild. They've been so wild. And like, for context for people listening, the way that I work, I'm very much ceremonial orientated. I do a lot of priestess work. I do a lot of helping people tap into liminal states of consciousness where like absolute magic resides and where you're accessing parts of yourself that are kind of beyond normal 3D access beyond the normal 3D way of relating to and existing in the world. And as a result of that, like, I think some of what we're going to talk about is going to be a revelation to me, because when we're doing our sessions, we are so present and we're in such altered states of consciousness that my kind of the priestess woman that's talking to you now isn't necessarily the same level of consciousness as the one that is holding space for you when we do our sessions. So I'm really interested to see what comes through in our chat today, really.
Now, I'm glad you've explained that, Rachel, because I wasn't even sure how to go there with the way you work. So thank you for enlightening us there.
No worries.
So yeah, I thought we could start with the main thing that came out with me the first time that we worked together was I was telling you all about kind of my maiden stuff and how I tried to kind of grieve the maiden and let that go. And then what we ended up actually doing was having a conversation between the maiden and like myself, I guess. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember. So powerful.
It really was because, I've done all the therapy and I understand that we have to have compassion for ourselves. I think that's the main thing that a lot of us are missing in our lives, is that we're just not that nice to ourselves. We can be it to other people to an extent, but not so much, like it's okay for them to take a rest. It's okay for them to do that, but not okay for me.
Yeah.
So I understood that I needed to look at everything I did through that lens of don't forget what you've been through. And, that's where the compassion piece comes through. But what I didn't understand it in my body, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the work that we did is the thing that made me understand physically and I guess from a nervous system point of view, how to actually be compassionate for yourself. And it was all through that conversation with the maiden, who actually turned out to be some kind of like proper fairy diva energy.
Oh, that is the bit that I love the most, I think, about that whole thing. Because that's, it's cool and it's magical, and it's like that was a place. I think one of the things that really stood out to me on that first session was you saying to me, I don't know if you remember saying it, but you said to me, I've done years of therapy, but it's never allowed me to access this part of myself. And kind of, it's almost like that part of you was it's a magical part of you, and it was like ostracized, or it was beyond the realms of conscious cognizance, so you weren't fully aware of it and its power and its magic and its part in your life. And I think that really, as a coach, that really, and as somebody who works in a very particular way and does this work in a very particular way, it's always so satisfying to hear that, because I don't know, maybe people listening to this who are also in the healing realm and in the margins like I am, maybe they can resonate that it's easy to diminish the impact of our work because it's not fully researched. It comes from a place of divine intervention, from a place of accessing the collective, accessing magical spaces, accessing liminal spaces. And like, we live in a 3D world that values data, research, quantitative evidence, qualitative evidence. It's like, it's very at odds. The work we do is very at odds with how the world is currently set up. Years ago, like back in the day, our work would have been completely natural, but there's been such a swing since sort of, I can't think of the dude, but there's been such a swing away from animism and away from shamanic and indigenous internal wisdom towards placing our kind of bias and our acceptance on what's outside of us and what can be measured and proved. So for me, like hearing you say and seeing the ripple effect of contacting and embodying and accessing these parts of yourself that were marginalized, and understanding that actually there's such an important place for work like mine and probably many of the people that listen to your podcast, because we need both, right? We've got left and right hemispheres in the brain that do different things, and a lot of the modern work that is accepted only accesses the left side of the brain. It's only accessing that part of us. So yeah, for me, like seeing that change in you and seeing there's like this magical moment, when I'm with somebody, I'm coaching them, I'm supporting them, I'm leading them through these experiences. There's this magical moment where I feel and witness almost like a part of them come home. And you can feel it, you
Yeah.
can see it. It's like it clicks in or it awakens, or there's a different energy present suddenly. And it's real. I'd love to hear your side of that perspective, because when I witness it, in my body, it feels like, oh, a part of me is back, like an energy's returned that was missing. And like almost like, oh, this sense of relief almost. Like how does that resonate or not with how you found it when you kind of contacted and saw and witnessed that fairy energy?
Um, it was sort of like, yeah, it was like having acknowledging that a part of you exists. Because I think a big thing was that I was expecting this part of me to show up to be like all the things that you want yourself to be when you're showing up to be, in business and making money and supporting other people. I wanted it to show up, but I also wasn't meeting its needs in any way.
Mm.
So this understanding that the reason I was having a breakdown was basically because this part of me that I wanted to show up and to start making money immediately, like we've got our own house now, there's no reason not to be doing this stuff. It didn't trust the other part of me to properly look after it.
Yeah.
So it was there being like, but I need all these things if you want me to show up. And I don't trust you at all. Like at the time that I spoke to you about this stuff, all of my clothing was still in a bin bag. Like I'd been in my house for a month. I'd prioritized everything else, but my stuff was in a bin bag.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So it was like after that realization that we've just got to be nicer to ourselves. And there is literally a bit of us that is going, stop calling me pathetic. Stop treating me like shit and putting my stuff in bin bags, because I'm not gonna support you until you start being nicer.
Oh, so powerful.
And so that was like the moment of being like, oh, that's what compassion is.
Oh, wow.
Just taking your time to put your stuff, hang your clothes up in a closet and make sure you're doing those little things for yourself as well, because it's vital to you being able to then show up in the world and help other people.
Wow. And how do you think you were treating that part of yourself before you were compassionate to
Well, Rachel,
it?
let me tell you, I was relying on external validation to look after that part of me.
Mm.
So, men in particular, like, oh, if I've got a guy in my life, then they can make me feel special. And then that'll see to that side of my needs. And so, because I've moved into a house on my own without a man, I was like, oh shit, who the fuck's going to look after me then? Or that bit of me was anyway.
Yeah.
So I think we even had a conversation between the maiden part of me and myself where we came to a mutual understanding that I was able, like conscious part of me was able to look after the fairy diva, because she had quite high demands, but
Yeah.
I'm okay with it now.
But there's like,
Now I understand it. That's fine.
and I get again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the very strong feeling that the conscious part of you was really rejecting and judging the fairy diva
Oh,
for all that
yeah.
she was.
I was like, get your shit together. Stop having so many needs. We haven't got time for this, more or
Haven't
less.
got time for this. We haven't got time to unpack our clothes from the black bin bag that they're living in.
Just dig out that top. You'll be fine. Stop making such a fuss.
Oh, and it's so funny
Very
because, like,
strange.
so much of my work before I went into the coaching, before I got qualified as a coach, and I was doing a lot of my shamanic work and yogic work and stuff, it's all been about self-love. It's all been about being compassionate to yourselves. And I think you said it at the start of our chat today. It's like, it's work, it's such important work. It's the basis and the
Yeah,
foundation of everything.
definitely. And just allowing yourself, because I think the next bit that we worked on was, I think it came from a place of, I can't make money. I was like, there's something going on where I'm like unable. There's some kind of barrier that is in my way to making money, and I don't understand what it is. And in that call, we ended up going, like, I was like, there's something in the left side of my neck.
Yeah.
And so intuitively we were like, well, we'll just go there and see what happens. So this is where I'm like, people are thinking I'm fucking crazy. But we had a conversation with the knot in my neck.
Yeah.
So we went into ceremony and it was like talking to the knot, and I had to be the knot and embody the knot and answer your questions.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, it all comes back to, I can't remember when the knot appeared. I think it came to me that it was around about when I was about 10 years old.
That's
And
what
I
I
write
remember.
about this in the book, actually. When I was 10, we moved to Birmingham and I went to an inner city school, and I just got bullied mercilessly because I was this fairly posh girl in the middle of Birmingham. And, they just knew I didn't really belong there. So I was a pretty easy target.
And children.
So I think from then on, it was like, okay, I need to not be myself because it's not working. I'm not fitting
Not
in. So
safe.
how can I fit in?
Not
Yeah.
safe to be myself because people don't like it.
People didn't like it, Rachel. My new book, How to Divorce Sober, is out now. It's basically everything I needed to get through addiction and divorce in one place. With fairy tale symbolism and tons of practical advice, you'll learn how to be free, build a strong support system, and embrace a positive future. You can grab How to Divorce Sober on Amazon today. It's available in print, ebook, and audiobook, narrated by yours truly. So a knot started to form, and then so we were able to have that conversation and understand where, because do you know what? Most of the time I don't feel the knot. The second I sit on a yoga mat, I can feel it.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like when we were talking about making money and we were talking about, different ways and stepping up and doing that, that's when it started hurting.
Yes, that must be it.
I feel like
I was telling you about that, and you're like, and as we're talking, my neck's getting tighter and tighter, and
that's what I remember. And because I remember thinking like, oh, hello, what is the body? Because that's the other, you are so brilliant to work with because you have such a, you've got a keen vision, you've got a really powerful inner vision combined with a real intimacy with your own body. And like, I think one of the things that a lot of people are working with the mind a lot, and they miss so much information that is coming from the somatic experience in the body, and not just the nervous system and stuff, but like information that the nuance of your body is giving you, you know, like the nuance of your body was this real pain in your, is like your left shoulder, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like the trap running down from the neck. That muscle there, it was
Yeah.
just completely knotted, and the more we talked about it, the more it was getting tighter and tighter, and yeah.
Don't you think
And then
it's
we
like fascinating though how when we went into it, it had all of this information?
yeah, absolutely, and it's happened a few times since when we do this
Mm.
work, suddenly we're like, "Oh, I've been taken back to a memory, and I'll take you there," and it's like, "Okay."
It's so interesting.
Yeah. So the reason I bring up the whole knot thing is that we realized through this ceremony that it was connected to me showing up as my true authentic self,
Mm.
and that feeling like if I do, I'm going to get rejected.
Mm.
And so, I'd like to say that I am myself most of the time, but there's a big part of myself that I do keep hidden, or I did up until then, and it was all around the magic and the ceremony. And so the very next day, I was like, I'd been sitting on this idea to do a summer solstice fire ceremony. And so the next day after we did that, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to show up online and tell people what I want to do.
Yay!
And within a week, I'd sold out the event.
I get shivers hearing that.
2 events, in fact, because I did a morning ceremony and an evening ceremony.
And you just like
Um,
smashed it out of the park.
yeah. But, as soon as I'd done it, you were like, right, we need to make sure that you don't go, this was a
Yeah,
one-off,
yeah. Like,
and keep leaning into that. But it was really beautiful moment of being like, just show up as yourself. And that was what I needed to do in order to break the dam in terms of making money. Because it wasn't a cheap event either.
no. And there was two of them on the same day.
2 on the same day, it did nearly kill me. But and 2 3-hour events
Yeah.
involving a lot of holding space, but it was unbelievably beautiful, and I was so grateful for it, and for it to be able to go, okay, line in the sand. I'm not a person who can't make money. I just need to show up as myself.
Ah, so good. So
Yeah.
good. And it's like you just, in that moment, you redefined, like you totally rewired and repatterned such a deep belief around your ability to stand on your own 2 feet, make money yourself, be a powerful, independent woman, making money by being herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. So good. And it was easy, right? That's what I remember about it. I remember it being, you like, one day you're doing it and the next you're like, oh, I've sold them out. And I'm like, yes, babe. Yes, queen. You've done it.
I wouldn't say it was easy.
Is that nice to be
But
on it?
it's
Because I wasn't doing it.
so easy. It only took you a week. And like, I don't remember eating or sleeping that week, but I was like, I'm doing this. I'm going to do it. And it's leaning into the discomfort of
Mm.
it might not work,
Oh my God, that's so good. So good.
and being okay with that.
Yeah. And that not, you know, it not working, the temptation, if we try something and it doesn't work, the temptation is to then create a whole story and narrative around that, and a new belief system around it not working. So it's almost like we put so much weight and expectation and meaning to something working, but actually, like, if you look at people who've done incredible things on this planet, most of them have failure after failure after failure after failure under their belt. And the difference is they don't make that mean anything. They
Hmm.
just carry on with their vision, they carry on with their ideas, and they just keep going till they get there. And I think that's such a beautiful thing that you approach that with, that yeah, it's so generative that you're like, you know what, if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And I think that's the big difference once you've learned how to be compassionate with yourself.
Mm.
Because I tried to do something about, 2 years ago where I was going to do a divorce retreat. And that's kind of how this podcast started, because I was like, I'll do a podcast and I'm going to sell a divorce retreat. And it's going to be quite expensive, but I'm going to bring all of the resources to one place. So you'll have all the yoga and the healing stuff, but then we'll also have the practical. There'll be divorce lawyers, financial advisors, therapy, like all in one space. And it didn't work.
Oh man,
So it was a bit
such a
like,
good
oh my God,
idea.
it's so embarrassing. It didn't work. But now I can look back and be like, it didn't work then because I probably wasn't ready. And maybe when the time is right and I am visited by the muse again,
Mm,
it might be right. It might be the right thing to do.
100%. I genuinely think that's a brilliant idea. And yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. I don't know of anyone doing anything like that. I've never heard of anything like that. I think I love, like, for all that I am Queen Witch, you know, playing in these liminal spaces, I'm also somebody who's an ex banker and, like, who's very pragmatic, quad left, Virgo to the hilt. So, like, I love the fact that you're bringing those practical things as well. It's so cool. Such a cool idea.
Yeah. Didn't work, babes. But like
No,
I
but
say,
yeah.
I had that whole like, I can't make money thing going on. And I think it was coming from a place of, I have to prove myself,
Mm,
which is not the right
no.
energy to bring to anything.
No, and also, like,
Like,
I'd be really curious to know if there was any sense in you of resistance to the idea, because in my experience, like, of putting stuff on for the last 10 years, if I've got any off energy around putting something on, it doesn't work. So, like, if a
yeah, yeah,
part of
yeah,
me's
yeah.
like, oh, I'm too tired, it won't sell. Or if part of me's like, oh, it's too expensive, it won't sell. So it's almost like if
Mm.
there's a part of me that's rejecting the idea for whatever reason, it it's amazing how the energy of that is conveyed unconsciously to people.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Would you be up for coming back to talking to me more about um I well, the working title is Cock Blocking Your Money.
I love it. Yes.
Will you come back? And we'll do a two-parter because I feel like there's a lot more we need to talk about
Hell yeah.
on this subject.
Hell yes. I love talking about money.
Awesome. Oh, lush. Okay, well, let's come back next week and we will talk about cock blocking money and how we can stop doing it.
Awesome.
Thanks, babe.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. All the details you need are in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do hit the subscribe button and leave a review. It really helps more people find the show. And if you know someone who'd love these stories, feel free to share it with them too. As you know, I love hearing from you, so please do reach out on Instagram at HannahHarveyUK or through my website, hannahharvey.uk.